Every FF14 player recognises this scene. The Seventh Umbral Calamity, which ushered in a new era for Eorzea and Etheirys. Despite its turbulent history, we know a lot about this world's past, such as the era of Alag's rule and the era of the War of the Magi. But there is one era where the pages of history are blank. The Fifth Umbral Calamity is an event frozen in mystery. It brought an end to the Fourth Astral Era, and despite that era lasting millennia, almost no records of it survive to the modern day. But I feel this forgotten age is a key to what the future may hold, so we're going to explore this subject in more detail. First, I'll do a full lore dive of the subject. Then, I'll venture into theory mode to try and make the pieces fit. We go back roughly 5 millennia. The Fourth Umbral Calamity of Earth has come and gone. This calamity buried the Allagan Empire, ending the greatest civilization the world had yet seen. Etheirys was shaken to its core, and its people once again had to find their way forward. Many viewed this calamity as a result of man reaching too far, and the gods struck back. On the continent of Aldenard, modern day Eorzea, gods of old and new became something to be feared. Not only that, invention and knowledge were seen as a path to ruin, thus did civilization stagnate. This was Eorzea's version of the Dark Ages. Books were burned, surviving Allagan marvels were buried. The church took over leadership of what remained once again, and forbade the learning of knowledge that could damn the world. But in reality, this was all a system to control the masses. If you know anything about our own Dark Ages, you might see the similarities. One positive to come from this is the modern day Eorzean alphabet can trace its origins to the church's teachings of that era. It was originally a church created language to control the narrative, and to ensure none could read past knowledge such as surviving tomes of Alag. This language would later become what we call Eorzean. We skip ahead nearly 1500 years, and civilization is pretty much unchanged, and thus was ill prepared for the coming calamity. The Ascians triggered an event on the source. What kind exactly has been lost to time, but this coincided with the rejoining of the sixth reflection aspected to ice. The effect on Etheirys was world altering. This rejoining triggered an artificial ice age. Legends tell of unending snowstorms. The weather grew so cold even the seas iced over. Rivers and coastlines froze, making fishing impossible, and the cold and snow killed anything that tried to grow. In terms of death tolls, this calamity was the worst, especially for what is now Eorzea, which saw a majority of its people die out due to famine. What civilization existed in this realm before the calamity was gone now. But this period, later dubbed the Age of Endless Frost, saw a mass migration of displaced peoples to Eorzea. During Alag's Golden Age, the Makote were driven from Eorzea. In the Empire's twilight and conquest of Mericidia, one of the races they encountered were the Makote. Dismissed as primitives destined for a life of slavery, many of them were taken to Iltzabard as manual labour. After Alag's fall, these peoples endured on Iltzabard, settling in areas such as Corvos. During the Ice Age, tribes of Makote migrated to Eorzea via land bridges, which connected both continents, showing just how extreme this age really was. One of the few records we have of this era is from the South Sea Isles. In the early years of this Ice Age, the Isles were subject to the worst the cold had to offer. In their desperation, the native Lalafell population turned to an artifact we know today as the Key. With it, they opened a rift to the Ninth Reflection, through which most of them escaped. Historical record would list them as lost with no explanation, until we learned the truth in Alexandria and met their descendants, the Milalla. The Age of Endless Frost would not last forever, and soon the world began to fall back into elemental balance. Perhaps the Ascians are to blame, as the next reflection they would rejoin was the 10th aspected to water. Because of this, ice, pardon my pun, would not suffice.
Oh my god, you're so cringe.
And that's all we know of this age in recorded history.
Hold on a gosh darn Moogle moment, that's all you're giving us?
Sadly, yes. The book burnings of the previous era and stagnation of civilization left next to nothing besides oral history to go by, and most oral history was lost due to the mortality rate during the Ice Age. Now we move on to theory mode. This is where I'll also speculate as to what this era could mean for the future of FF14. First, let's examine the Calamity of Ice. Today, we know that in order to rejoin a reflection, a calamity of the same element needs to be triggered on the source. Ice is pretty unique, so a calamity involving that element would be one of only a few options. We know the end result was an Ice Age, but what was the method used to create it? We can look to our own world for guidance, as our planet has experienced a great many Ice Ages in its history. A changing of Earth's orbit around the Sun, such as its tilt and rotation, greenhouse gases caused by excessive volcanic activity, changes to ocean currents, ancient asteroid strikes, and even continental shift and plate activity are some of the causes. Let's apply these to Etheirys, and keep in mind this only happened there a couple thousand years ago. Cross out continental shift and plate activity. These are the wrong aspect and would take too long. There's no evidence of volcanic activity, and they would be aspected to Earth or fire. Orbital changes? I suppose, but not even the Ascians could pull that off. Ocean currents could be possible, but again, not the right element. Etheirys is a world of magic. The answer has to be more blunt and obvious. An asteroid strike, a likely candidate, one that would block out the sun and trigger an Ice Age, and could tie into the events of the series. But I feel it's something else.
You keep saying what it's not, how about telling us what it is?
To be honest, I was pretty stumped. It had to have been something aspected to ice, and instant enough to breach the etheric barrier and trigger the rejoining. So I changed methods, and I looked at the puzzle from a different angle. Instead of looking for the cause, I started looking for the point of origin. All the calamities have one. The Calamity of Earth was the ground below the Crystal Tower. The Seventh Umbral Calamity was Dalamud's destruction and Bahamut's rampage. As ideas continued to swirl around my mind, I recalled back to what Emmett Selk once told us.
Or the treasure islands beyond the frozen waters of Blind Frost in Offerd's north.
The Blind Frost is a region we have yet to visit. It's a vast sea, dotted with islands that is choked with flows of ice and bergs. So much in fact that a safe route has yet to be charted through it. What exactly lies waiting for us there has been long speculated. Treasure islands, a lost civilization, or yet more marvels of Allagan technology, who can say? But ask yourself this question. What was Emmett Selk's interest in this place? Why would he mention it to us if it didn't hold some significance? The answer is he was already familiar with the region, as it was in fact the focal point for triggering the Fifth Umbral Calamity. The Blind Frost of today is a region of eternal cold. Nothing outstanding about that, our own planet has a continent that fits that profile. There should be a few islands there as well, but due to the difficulty of travel, we know next to nothing about them.
Interesting theory, so what do you expect to find there from a lore and gameplay perspective?
I'm glad you asked. Once I narrowed down the point of origin, it was easier for me to speculate as to what the cause of the Calamity of Ice really was. We know it had to have been a sudden event. It was aspected to ice, and the Ascians were directly involved. The answer couldn't have been more simple. It was an ice aspected Primal. It could have been summoned and triggered the artificial Ice Age, and this process was fueled by the aether of the rejoining reflection. But to affect the entire planet and bring about an Ice Age, this is no normal Primal we're talking about. This one could even be on the scale of an elder Primal like Bahamut in its prime form. And I think I've also identified how it was able to bring about the Ice Age. A leyline confluence is likely located in the region of Blind Frost. The Primal tapped into the ley lines to dramatically alter the source's elemental alignment, thus bringing about sudden change.
What Primal do you think it is? Can't be too many ice summons in the series.
You're right, but I can't dismiss them creating something new. The most famous one is naturally Shiva, a version of which we've already seen. There's also Matthias from the Evilly series. None of the others fit the profile, I even looked at the previous antagonists and none of them work either. I believe it will be something new we have never seen before. A unique primal to FF14.
You're holding something back. Tell us, now.
Okay, this is a stretch. Take a look at the map of Etheirys. Ignoring the fact most of it's covered in clouds, it shows some interesting figures we can't identify. One of these is a giant figure which looks to be on the icy northeastern coast of Ilsabard, in close proximity to Blindfrost. What if this is our Primal? This giant has been the subject of discussion and speculation for over a decade, and it may finally be answered, with it actually being the Primal that caused the Age of Endless Frost. This Primal could be our reason for venturing to Blindfrost in the first place. It may still be there in a dormant state, frozen in the very ice it created. Perhaps 9.0 will answer this question. It's possible one of the remaining reflections is aspected to ice, and we have to put an end to this Primal in Blindfrost to eliminate any chance of a future rejoining. Or it could be tied to our future journey to Mericidia. On a final note, the way Emet-Selch referred to Blindfrost has always been curious to me. He called the land there Treasure Islands. But think about that for a second. If we think of treasure, we imagine gold, jewels and wonders. What does treasure mean to an ancient like Emet-Selch, who has a mastery over creation magic? Recall back to our conversation. He called Vitra's treasure trove below the bounty a ruin. A natural wonder of the star might be something an ancient like him considers treasure.
For you, maybe. I want nothing to do with it.
I am personally looking forward to Blindfrost, as snow regions are beautiful and interesting to me. Whatever the case, that is the forgotten Ice Age of Etheirys.